him, the valuing of the relationship um, that she had with him. And part of it was, I notice now, and this is very thematically true for the rest of what I'm talking about this morning, but I noticed part of it was that she could feel the generosity of what it was he wished to do, not expectations that she may have had. And that when I look at her experience then of fatherhood, it wasn't held the way that she may have dreamed of, the story she may have written, or the expectations that she had, but instead she talks about these two people in her life who have taught her about unconditional love, who have taught her what it looks like for to be carried, to be held, to be thought about, to have somebody witness and walk with you. And it's not just her stepdad, but it is also a friend of mine of 17 years that is like family to her. And so these ways for which we ask for maybe this loving father relationship, but we receive that through ways we didn't expect. And that in through those loving relationships, she has learned how to have a more loving relationship with her biological father. And that's an incredible full circle experience of what it looks like to meet people where they're at, to witness what's there, and to allow what it is that's naturally there to grow. And that when we let go and release some of our narrative, we can do that more readily. So with that, I'm going to screen share and hop into a talk that I think in some ways is really just simply affirming that story, except for I don't see my, oh, there we go. So Charles Fillmore says, we must learn to let go, give up, and to make room for the things we've prayed for and desired. We must learn to let go and give up. And I would suggest letting go of these expectations, these narratives of the story of what it's supposed to be. And perhaps it's even letting go of some of the ways that we in the past have done what we needed to do in order to be safe and okay, but that those ways of being have outgrown us. Perhaps it's also letting go of that. So I want to think first about the energy of summer. Each season has its own wisdom. And I read this quote from a book. Summers had a logic all their own, and they always brought something out in me. Summer was supposed to be about freedom and youth, no school, and possibilities and adventure and exploration. Summer was a book of hope. That's why I loved and hated summers, because they made me want to believe. So for me, this idea of summer comes into this space of growing something maybe wild and unruly and letting that exist, letting that be there. And I think about my own resistance to this idea of wild and unruly. And I think about how we might garden, and maybe we only want certain things to grow. Or maybe we plant tulips and then we're frustrated when the tulips come up and we wanted them to be a specific color to match the door, but they're not. They're all different colors. Or maybe, like me, you have a kid who has literally reflected in the last month or two about we met them when they were 5 and they're now just shy of 14. And they literally just said to me a month or two ago, yeah, when I first met you, I thought, oh my gosh, people might be scared of our house and think a witch lives here. And I smiled and laughed because our gardens are completely unruly and whatever grows will grow. And there's room for it all. And there's lots of fairies and gnomes and other things in there also. And then they reflected, but now I know we're good witches. So there's nothing to be afraid of. And those types of moments make my heart smile, because it wasn't about shifting anything other than a perspective to include what was there. And so this idea of wild and unruly also gets met by our side, the side of us that will inevitably come back into fall. Right? Fall, where we determine what we harvest and what we let go of, where we start to sort. But the dangerous thing that we do in life is to not be present in what is. And right now we are present in this summer. When I talked in the spring, I was talking about what seeds do you want to plant? And now those sprouts are going to grow, but they're not maybe going to grow in the ways we thought they would. And what about that? When I talked in the spring, I wove in Buddhist wisdom about the near enemy. And to just clarify again, the near enemy is the thing that is a virtue that seems close to what you might be seeking. And the example I used in the spring was love, and that the near enemy of that is attachment, that it looks and acts like, masquerades as love. But that it oftentimes has a need from the person. And it oftentimes says, I will give you this affection if you give me this. And so attachment becomes very rigid and is very different than love. I want to build on the idea of love versus attachment by talking about the near enemy of connection, which is control. And I want you to pause for a moment and think about the ways for which we move from connection, this natural thing that exists. This is in unity, we hear lots about it in terms of flow, in terms of the allness, in terms of being with what is, and in terms of it's all good in the sense that it's all present and there. So then holding that with this really robust ability to be with what is moment to moment. Can I be with what is, even if it's different than what I thought, even if I don't understand it? Can I be there and say, I know there's something good and beautiful in this because it's here, whether that's within myself or presented in front of me in this world. So the near enemy of connection being control, the first piece that I want to invite us to consider is this. When we choose to assert control, we put ourselves in a place of assuming something about someone else. We maybe assume what they should or shouldn't wear, what they should do or not do, and also who they should be with, how they should love, and what their lives should look like in order for us to view them as worthy, lovable, acceptable, or being a success in this life with the limited view that we might have been given on what success is. And when we talked this morning about the land acknowledgement, it would be a missed opportunity if I didn't draw a line of connection between what it looks like to colonize. And what that looks like is that there was a full ecosystem in existence with Indigenous folks. Language, gender, sexual orientation, ceremonies, garments, ways of being, ways of working in community together. There was a full organism of community. And when we come in and we say, we know better, here's the ways that you will be, this is what we will do. That was not connection, that was control. And what we did in those moments was we erased what was. We erased what was already there and we said, no, this narrow path is what is okay. Everything else in existence does not have room. So when we seek to put into action, and there's 95 actions to our land acknowledgement, 95 actions. So oftentimes people will ask me, what's beyond the land acknowledgement? And I firmly believe it's the work. And so when I'm speaking this morning, I am speaking to the work of making room again simply for what is. Simply for what is, making room again. And what that would bring back as far as language and ways of being that are completely natural, have been here forever. And we start to connect differently again with one another in a way that sees and celebrates what is. And so we decide then what we know, quote, is best for another, what we would really like to see, instead of choosing vulnerability and connection, instead of choosing to be who we are in that moment with another as they are. So when we do find ourselves trying to control a situation, The first thing I would say is this: it's natural. Oftentimes we do those things because we want to feel safe and okay. And when we can see that we are safe and okay in a broad field without borders that includes all different types of flowers and blooms, we start to grow the capacity for more of ourselves, more of those universes that are within us to grow and expand, and more of the universe that is around us to have space to simply be, and for us to be in connection with one another. So asking ourselves, how could you choose connection instead? I've talked about it before, and you'll likely hear it as a thematic piece when I speak, which is this idea of people pleasing. We do it often, and I want to name it as something that we do to control rather than connect. When we people please, we choose to assume what we think others need. We choose to assume what we think others need, and we hide our truth selves and our desires from them. In essence, this is another form of control. As people pleasers, we get to be in control of the situation by choosing to do what we assume others want or need, instead of choosing vulnerability and connection by communicating what we want and need and having conversations. We forfeit those conversations and we move into a narrative of anticipating, imagining, assuming what another's need or want may be. And in that, we miss both showing and exposing the beauty of our own power and our capacity to be with another in theirs. And in reverse, there's the times where we maybe need to check ourselves. Do I even want to hear what this person actually wants and needs? Or do I just want them to be in service of me? Because we're oftentimes on both sides of that idea of people pleasing. Just do what I want. Fine, I'll do what you want. And what I notice is we become in what I would say are mutually muting experiences of life, where we start to mute out who we are, and then we get resentful and we expect the people around us to mute out who they are, and we're in mutual mute. Neither one of us is showing up as who we really are. What a shame to miss the gift of authenticity, to miss the gift of community and connection through seeing and celebrating who is really there. Who are you really? So I would suggest that the most robust connections in my life are with people who are fearlessly themselves and who are fearlessly willing to meet me as myself in all my beauty and imperfection that is perfect when it's held with this beautiful vulnerability and realness. That's the potential that we have. And then the last one that I want to talk about and touch on today is the idea of perfectionism, which is absolutely a very colonizing quality. And perfectionism at its core is aiming to control the image that others have of us. And we want, maybe even expect ourselves to be perfect, but that is simply impossible. Perfectionism is a form of control that combats vulnerability and communication about our missteps. Why would I ever assume that I'm going to do this life perfectly? How could I ever assume, for example, that I would know your wants and needs as though you would know your own heart, mind, and needs better than me? But what if instead I made room for my own wants and needs, for my own growth edge, the ways that I'm growing, that I've not arrived yet, but that I'm okay and safe as who I am right now, and so are you? What if we created those spaces together? And not in a way where we state our needs without power, but rather where we state our needs with power. And it's a simple rephrase from maybe it would be stating, just so you know, I struggle with anxiety. Okay. That would be me stating something, say, about myself, but without stating what my need is. What would change if I said, I just want to be transparent. I'm struggling today with feelings of anxiety. And what you may notice is that I'm quieter throughout this meeting. And I just wanted to name that and simply let that be there. So I tell in that moment what my need is, which is for understanding that I may be quieter today. So too, it can be as simple as, just an access need I have today is that my back is hurting. And so I may need to stand up throughout this meeting, or may need to have my camera off. Whatever that need is, to be able to state your need and how you're hoping to meet that and be supported in meeting that. That is very different than this idea that we show up and maybe never state any need or struggle at all. Our struggles connect us. Why? Because all of us have them. All of us are fighting some sort of a battle. We don't need to know one another's battles to know that. When we approach one another in that way, with that generosity of our shared and common humanity and the beauty and struggle of this life, the game changes. So I want to invite you into this idea of letting go, and the art of letting go. Let come what comes, let go what goes, see what remains. This idea of letting, particularly in the energy of summer, calls us into the place of saying, oh, I'm curious what's going to grow. I planted some seeds, but of course I'm not the only one planting seeds. If we're all planting seeds together, various things will grow. And in this interconnected understanding of oneness, I will get to interact and connect with the seeds you've planted. There's a level of excitement about this unknown quality and potential of when we interact and co-create with one another. When we get close enough to connect in these beautiful ways where we share information, we share understanding, we share growing in new ways. And I want to stop screen sharing for a second, and I'm going to flip to a piece of poetry that I wrote maybe 3 years ago now. And what I want to invite you to consider is what would happen if you invited this prayer into your life. So I'm going to weave from this prayer into, I would call it all meditation. So I invite you to take a moment to open, to take a moment to invite yourself into this idea of letting and the posture of letting, and what it might mean to say to yourself this: I have the courage now to let myself back in. The courage to join together all the material and tones that are me, and to own them all. I have the wisdom to know that this journey will take me places I never imagined. Tender spirit, I am so sorry for the ways that I dismissed you by pretending I was stronger or less emotional or just less than I am. Curious heart, I am so sorry for the ways that I treated you with disgust, thinking that you were stupid, that you should know. I trust you, beautiful heart. You are wise, and you hold so much wisdom. Playful soul, I am sorry for the ways I repressed you, thinking that it had to be perfect or that I needed to be something specific rather than simply me. Mostly, I'm sorry for not valuing all the you that is effortlessly. Tender spirit, curious heart, playful soul, you are wonderful and wonder-filled, and you are welcome here. I will make space for you, and you will grow. Be nourished, be loved, be seen. I will lovingly parent you now. I will hold you with the wisdom of the universe. I love you. I want to share with you a curious fact. We as humans can see three primary colors for which all other colors are born. This is the color theory as we know it right now. And I don't actually expect that it's full and complete, but simply the color theory that we know now. However, at the same time, we know that humans can see three primary colors for which all other colors can be made. We also know that in existence in the world today is the mantis shrimp. And the mantis shrimp, of all curious creatures, can actually see 12 primary colors. And while scientists don't know why this is, that the mantis shrimp can see so many more colors, they know that it can. With that information, I invite you to consider what might be in your world, looking to grow, existing with beauty, or looking to be seen right before your eyes, that you could expand your mind and your heart to see, to include, to celebrate. To draw in the energy of to let something seem broken, to notice mess and chaos, to not know, to lean in anyway, to see that life is a myriad of things, and what we do not like to see still exists in and out of ourselves. We could choose to explore instead, to stay curious, to be curious about why and when we need things to be a certain way to believe that we are okay. To breathe instead into the moment as it is. We write our story. We create our context. We learn, we grow, we understand, and we change. We can write a new story again from what we learned before. Our personal truth was meant to be tested against others, to expand and evolve so that we can come to understand new truths, those deeper, winding, wisdom, age-old truths. The many stained glass views of others looking back, beginning to see in shades and tones that may not be our own, and then seeing new in more vital color, with language to describe the experience in new understanding with new eyes, that now see that I could never see it all, and that that's beautiful. I can simply celebrate what is. Curiosity is reborn now with wisdom rooted in truth. And we rise. And in the moment of writing and erasing, we see how connected we are. And we begin to make greater space for ourselves to be. And we begin to hold ourselves in new and powerful ways. So as I close today, I ask this: what would truly infinite space be? What would that look like to open and expand into infinite space? Thank you.